Welcome to this opening video. We're going to be looking at the Vienna system. I'm going to run through a few of the lines, some of the interesting tricks and traps. Obviously can't do every move in response, so follow along with an engine or play a few games and see how you go. But the Vienna starts with e4, e5, so you have to learn a different system against the Sicilian or the Scandi or the French. But here we're going to play knight c3 and we're in the Vienna game. Now black has a number of responses here, and I'll cover 3 or 4 of the main ones that I faced in the 12 to 1600 bracket. So the reason we're going c3 and not f3 is we want to keep this open for the queen. We're going to bring the white bishop out as well, and we want to play f4 at some point in a lot of the lines. So from here, black has a number of responses. They can play f6 and get into the Vienna gambit, but we'll go with probably the most common reply, which is the same knight on knight to c6. And from here I recommend bishop c4, going after this f7 pawn, which is going to be our main target in most of these games. And if black plays the more principled knight to f6, we're going to get a little bit more of a positional game in this regard. But I'll show you a few tricks in that line. So here, the immediate d3, just protecting the pawn. If you try and bring this knight out too early, black has some nasty tricks on grabbing this pawn and hitting you with a fork in the center. It's not the end of the game, just remember to drop back and pick it up. But this is a bit ugly, doesn't really look like a Vienna, so we'll avoid that if we can. Here, black normally develops, brings the bishop out. The bishop can go either to b4 or c5, and I'll cover both of those briefly now. So from here, I like to strike immediately with f4. Now the computer doesn't love this, it's a bit of a positional weakness, but it brings a lot of fun lines, including the ability to play f5 and just pawn storm your opponent. It also kind of encourages black to jump in a bit too early. You see, we've got a pretty big weakness here on f2, and if black can exploit that, they can win, at least an exchange. They can remove castling rights, but we've got a few responses to that. So from here, black normally develops. If they just develop passively d6, we're going to jump knight to f3. It's important to kind of prevent knight d4 or discourage knight d4 because we want to get our queen involved early. If black jumps in, like I was saying, a little prematurely, we have the nice response of just calling their bluff. We're going to jump straight back into g5 and go after this f7 pawn. So they may think they have an exchange here, but this is just too much too fast, and after queen h5, black is pretty much lost. There's no easy way to protect this pawn. If they try and just block you out with h6, we're going to bring in an entire army of pieces, all coming in with check, and black runs out of options very, very quickly. So after we've jumped in, black's best response is actually just to kick us out. You can throw in the check and get some really interesting lines there. I prefer the move I mentioned earlier, which is f5. We're just locking black over on the queen side, and we're going to smash through this king safety. If they take, we're going to take back with the queen, and we just have far more pressure than they do. When we bring this queen out early, it's important to remember that we've severely weakened the c2 square, and you can get in trouble with this fork in other lines, but here, if black goes for it, they just don't have the time to do any damage. We're going to checkmate them without this a1 rook anyway, so they may as well waste 3 moves taking it. Here, just immediately bishop up, hitting the queen. They'll block you out, and there's a number of moves basically anywhere you can put the bishop anywhere. You may as well do it with style and move up here. If they're smart and they take on h6, this is still winning for white, but not quite as nice. But you'd be surprised how many people take with the rook, blunder this pawn, and blunder their king safety completely. They're going to have to give up the queen and probably the rook here just to stay alive. You can try it in a blitz game, but over the board, just bring it back. If they want to do this fork, that's fine. They do not have time to be jumping down here and picking up rooks with this g7 pawn hanging. So if they don't jump in too early, what are you going to do here? So if we want to castle, we're going to have to get rid of this dark squared bishop. And a common way we can do that, let's say they're going to play a bit more positional, a bit more slowly. Here you can hit them again with the immediate f5. And if we do that, we're probably going to end up looking for a pawn storm. So knight jumps in. Again, we can jump straight back over the top. We don't mind letting them activate our queen. And the main thing we're doing is we want to get rid of this knight so that we can play g4. And we can play h5 without worrying about it. So here, takes. They might even help you out and take here as well. And if they play too passive, you can just start immediate queen h5. You can even just start getting these pawns rolling. And we're not going to castle. This is nice and closed. They might try and push you away. That's fine. You want to maintain this diagonal. And we're just going to roll these pawns down the board. Other than f5, like I mentioned, we can look to free up this diagonal so we can castle. And the main method to do that is knight out to a4. They can try and intermezzo a move in here, but we actually want to play c3 to block down the knight, so this is helpful, and we can just close them off. We're not, again, concerned about the pawns and the rook over here. We're going to go for another attack. So after takes here, we can start undermining the center. We can bring the bishop back so that it's got an escape. Important move to remember if you do manage to fit c3 in is that you prefer to keep this bishop pair alive if need be. And black has no real options as to a good way to defend this position. So you can castle, use the f-file, you can still push this pawn if you need to. I'm going to play a bit more positionally. We're going to go after this weak e5 pawn. This is probably the drier line that you're going to find in the Vienna. So that covers most of the starting moves. If in this position, instead of bishop to c5, we get bishop to b4, we're going again, this is going to be a bit more central focused, because what they're doing is they're pinning your knight in the hopes of being able to get in d5. So here, I think knight to e2, rather than the immediate f4, just to reinforce this center. Now here black, this doesn't actually stop d5, but it does take the sting out of it because this knight is now protected. So after e takes, knight takes, castles, so we're out of the pin. They have kind of one option here to pick this off if they want to, or try and reinforce this knight because it is currently hanging. If they do grab the knight, you can take back here, but actually prefer taking back with the bishop. And I'll show you why. This gets really messy for black. If they try and maintain some pressure here, we have bishop a3, preventing them from castling. This bishop can always sit back in here, which is a nice square for it as well. You can have a huge amount of diagonal pressure going after their king. They have no clear line forward, and we can even lift the queen up. We can play f4 and do a rook lift. We're going to go after using these two really nice long diagonals to pressure black. So that covers most of the early play if we get f6 and then bishop out. Alright, so I mentioned a few lines around knight c6 and then knight f6. But another common move is bishop out to f5. This is called the copycat variation, and it gets very bad for black very quickly. So we start with the immediate g4. Now there's going to be a lot of tactics involved here and a lot of things to keep track of, but mainly we are concerned about the c2 square. So there's a number of lines in which we want to prevent d4, and we also have the issue of the queen being directly in line with the bishop. So anytime this can come with tempo, and we don't have a better threat, we can get into a bit of trouble that way as well. So from here, black's best move, and actually a number of times black's best move is going to be king to f8. It's a really hard move to play. I haven't seen it very often at all. And if all we get out of this is them losing castling rights, we're still going to have a good mid-game. So the most common move from here is actually queen out to f6, trying to protect the pawn backwards this way, and that falls victim to knight to d5. This gets very messy very fast. So black has a nasty looking check on f2, but it doesn't actually do anything. We slide over. There's no check. We're going to get the knight out to h3 at some point and chase the queen away, which simultaneously protects our back rank. And black's going to have to be very accurate not to lose here. In fact, from this position, the only move that isn't losing is, again, king to f8. So something much more common is concern about this pawn, because this fork is a real danger, and I'll quite often see bishop back protecting this fork and forgetting that we still have this pawn hanging. So don't rush and take this rook, because we want to protect this pawn. We want to stop this diagonal from opening. They do then play d6. We can actually just get the knight out, activate the rook, and we're going to chase this queen out of this position. So if they don't protect this pawn, maybe they try something else. Maybe they try g6 just to keep you out of here as well. Then we have the immediate knight to h3, getting rid of the queen. Now I said we've got to be careful about this diagonal, but d6 doesn't actually work here. That queen is hanging. We're going to grab it. If they take back, we're going to grab again. We're just up a full bishop. And even worse than that, they've created some incredible dark square weaknesses here. So after d6 and the bishop comes out, black's going to have a lot of trouble defending that position. So after d1, black runs out of a lot of options. So let's just run through that last one again. If they do protect with g6, I feel like this is probably one of the most common moves they can make. And after they chase you out here, black can try and drop back into the middle. This runs into a bit of trouble. The queen is very nearly trapped, but this bishop is actually hanging. So don't play c3 first, play d3, protect your pawns, and then c3 is coming, which is a trapped position. So if they do drop back, which is the main move, you can drop back as well, threatening some checkmate here. You can just bring the rook over. c3 here isn't as good because they can evacuate. But just continue to develop your pieces. You can drop the knight back. You drop the queen back. You can put the knight forward. You're up a piece. You will be up a piece once you finish your development. Right, so if they don't bring the queen out, what other responses do they have? So we have pawn straight away to g6, protecting this, and creating those weaknesses I mentioned before. Now in this position, we've got to be careful of this diagonal, because we don't have a bigger threat. They'll be threatening to take a bishop. Here we can take a rook, but they've blocked that, so it's time to get the queen out the way. So f3 is the most accurate, threatening checkmate. You're going to force them to block with the knight, and then we need to get the knight g to e2, protecting that square. Remember I mentioned we want to avoid this knight coming in for the fork, because we're going to be fighting over this side of the board. From here, natural development for black, just getting d6, you can play d3, finish your pawn chain, and this knight is a huge liability. And actually the only move here is preventing us from getting in there and trying to cash in on that knight. If they don't, maybe they castle. Bishop g5 just straight up wins a piece. There's no way to defend this. They can try and come in and counterattack, but this knight can't go anywhere. So you're just going to trade off those pieces and then pick up a free piece. So once you've induced this weakness, you really want to look at getting that bishop out to capitalize on it. Another response, if they do try the immediate tactic of going after the bishop, you're going to just have to give that one up. So we're going to take up here on the rook. if they spend time going after it here, grab h8. This is hanging and hard to defend. King f8 again, surprisingly, works somewhat, but obviously a bishop for a rook and decimating their structure should be an easy conversion from there. So that's the copycat variation. When they bring that bishop out to c4, we're going to go queen g4. We're going to keep an eye on this diagonal. If the queen does come in, we're going to go with the counterattack. If they offer the trade, say thank you very much. We'll grab that, and then we'll grab the rook on the other side, easily winning. If the queen does infiltrate, we're going to look at playing h3 to get rid of it. We're going to maintain this diagonal. There are a few lines where they manage to get the knight out and take your knight. Don't take back with the bishop and hang checkmate. That's just embarrassing. Take with the pawn and everything is fine. And black's going to run into a lot of trouble with this line. Alright, so we have one last line here, which is going to be the Vienna Gambit after knight f6 and pawn f4. So this is a very well studied line. Black has a number of options. They can take, they can defend, or they can strike in the middle with d5, which is the computer move, the theoretical move, leads to some very dynamic lines. So let's look at the most common, which is pawn takes f4, and here white responds with the immediate e5. You'll notice the knight has no forward move it can make. It has to go back to g8. After g8, we want to make sure we get this knight out, protecting the h4 square. We don't want to allow this check. We'll see in some of the later lines how devastating this can be. So after we get the knight out, black can develop any of its pieces. d6 is probably the most common, going immediately for the center, and we're going to want to play d4 against pretty much any of them. Now here, again, black can develop, or they can take in the middle. If they take, we're going to want to get our queen to e2 and pin that pawn to the king. In order to do that, we want to get the bishop out first. We'll get it out to b5, and then black has, I guess, 4 options if they really want to block the check. If they block with the knight, we're going to go ahead with our plan, queen e2, and from here we're looking to pick up this pawn, castle short, and use the open file, and just overwhelm black. You can see we've got 4 pieces developed to their 1. They have no real options here. So after the check, you might get bishop g4 going after you here. You're just going to pick up this pawn. Remember, it's covered. If they try and get out of the check, you can even castle long here and just maintain the advantage. You can pick up the piece. This is still covered. They're not going anywhere. You've just got a huge development advantage. So if they can't block with the knight, maybe they can block with the bishop. This is just as bad. Queen e2, again, pinning the pawn. If they grab, don't take back with the queen. We put it here for a reason. Take with the knight, and any attempt to get out the middle, we just take on e5, and we're threatening this fork of the king and rook. So knight can't block either, bishop can't block, c6 is the main move, and then bishop drops back to where it's meant to be in the Vienna, which is staring at f7. Now here black can start to develop, and we'll follow the same plan. We can still go queen e2, we can also just castle straight away, and we want to pick up these 2 center pawns. You can jump in with the knight, maybe they block this way, you can jump in, and before they've castled, you can go after this. So after here, if black continues to take, you'll notice we've given up what was a really big center, but what we have is 3 pieces developed to nothing. So here, again, just a nice calm castle. Just develop a whole another piece, and black is about to get overwhelmed. It takes really precise play not to lose from here, and the worst thing they can do is grab at that free knight. The queens now see each other. Classic, deflecting the defender. The king can't ignore it, because you'll just come over with the rook as well. So once they pick that up, you pick up the queen for free, and you're winning. Just one last bit to be aware of. Don't forget about the weak f2 square. Don't go from completely winning to completely losing in one move. Once they start developing this corner, just give them a check, shove the king back, and then you can pick up as many pieces as you want. So that is the Vienna Gambit accepted. If they don't want to accept it, maybe they want to defend it. If they defend with the knight, this is actually worse. So you're going to play the same move, you're going to threaten this knight, they're going to take, and now you just have two knights to chase around the board. Wherever they go, you're going to hit this knight again, send it back to the corner, you're going to get your other knight out, and you basically just have an extra development, and you've already won back that pawn, so you're just up 2 tempo. And it will proceed pretty similarly from there. You're going to get this out, you're going to castle, you're going to crush them down the f-file. So they can't defend with the knight, maybe they can defend with the pawn. And they can. So this is going to give you a nice position. We're still going to play knight f3. Their bishop is stuck behind their pawn chain. So after they play that, you can actually strike immediately with d4. Or you can just get the bishop out, try and follow that same center structure plan. Maybe they continue to develop. At some point, you'll want to pick this off and try and ruin their structure, but there's no rush on it. If they take here, they don't actually get to keep that. You can just play d4 and take the big center. This is just a great position to play from white. So they can defend with the pawn, but you're going to get a very nice middle game where white has a decent advantage. So that brings us to more the book line, which is the immediate d5. So from here, you're going to have to know a little bit of theory and a little bit of a reason why we're going into this. So same move, we're taking, we're hitting the knight. Unfortunately, now the knight has an outpost. Has a nice safe square to take here. And the first thing to know, we don't really want to take back, because after this, we get this inverted pawn structure. Our king is really weak. You can try and like counter-attack in d4. They can en passant, you can get the queen out. They have a nasty check out here. It just gets really messy, and black is fine. Black is actually slightly winning. It takes very accurate play for white to survive this. So don't rush and grab that. My recommended move here is queen f3, and this is doing a number of things. It's applying pressure here. It's not really defending this knight. If that knight gets taken immediately, we're actually going to take back with the b pawn. And we're doing that because we wouldn't mind getting a nice kind of open structure like this of the pawns in the center. So we're looking to play d4 in this line. What queen f3 is actually doing is it's applying a little bit of pressure here, but it's also defending the g3 square in case we have to play g3, and it's defending h1 in case some sort of g3 takes occurs. So a little bit aggression, a little bit prophylaxis. The best computer move here for black is f5, but the most common move, the most studied move, is probably knight to c6. And this is going after the pawn, but it's also threatening a fork here. So we want to pin that knight. We don't want to give this up without a fight. We don't want this to come in here. So we're going to pin here, and now black should take. We'll take back with the d pawn now, because we don't really have time to go after b and then d4. And now the textbook move is queen out to h4. We haven't had time to get our knight out, so they do have this check. We're going to block with g3. They check in the center, and the book follows as takes, knight e2, bishop takes. And you get this messy structure for white. They might castle first and stop you from castling. You have to go to this very open position. It's dead even, but it's a mess. So if they know the big book theory up till here, I recommend one last trick, which is bishop to e3. Now this hangs a pawn, and it does. Black is perfectly okay to take this. They've just put that queen a little too deep if they're not very, very careful. So knight e2, and black has to get their king out of the center or just get their queen back and try and accept that trade. If they get greedy, and the couple of times that I've played this in a blitz game, they have been greedy and taken b2. That is a free pawn. That hits a hanging rook and a hanging bishop. But after white just calmly castles, this is lost for black. The queen's not trapped. The queen can get out any number of ways. What is trapped is black's underdeveloped king in the center. So from here, we are threatening a check on f7. We have this knight still pinned, and black's in a lot of trouble. e6 is their best move, after which you get knight d4, striking still at the f7 pawn. And here they have to try and castle as quickly as possible. And we're just going to chase the queen around, get rid of the queen, and then a nasty little rook sack up here, picking up pretty much all of black's pieces. The rook's coming in, the knight's going to snap this up, this bishop can hit a whole lot of nasty diagonals. This is, game over for black. If they don't fall for that trap, you're still in a fine position. So the best move for them is just to get castled as quickly as possible. You're still going to play d4, you're still going to castle. I'd much rather be white here, even though it is dead even. Just, you have so much more dynamic piece mobility. You're going to grab that pawn. This pawn is going to be really hard to guard. They can open up, but your rooks are connected. There's nothing really threatening here. You can pick up this extra pawn as well. This is a lot of fun to play. So that is the Vienna Gambit. Just remember, after takes, push, don't forget to guard this h4 square. If they defend with the pawn, just go naturally. They defend with the knight, you want to take and blow d4 open. And yeah, I hope you enjoy playing the Vienna as much as I do. Best of luck.